On April 1, 2026, the United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments in a case that could reshape what it means to be an American citizen. The case is Trump versus Barbara, and the question before the court is this: does being born on U.S. soil automatically make you a citizen? For 158 years since the ratification of the 14th Amendment, the answer has been yes, with very narrow exceptions. Now, that's being challenged. This isn't just about immigration. It's about the collision between two fundamental pillars of freedom: sovereignty and rights. Let me explain. The case centers on Executive Order 139-160, signed by President Trump on January 20th, 2025, his first day back in office. The order is titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship, and it directs federal agencies to change citizenship procedures. It directs the State Department, Homeland Security, and the Social Security Administration not to issue citizenship documents to specific categories of children. First, children whose mother was unlawfully present in the United States and whose father was not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. Second, children whose mother's presence was lawful but temporary, such as a tourist, student, or work visa, and whose father was not a citizen or resident. Based on data from Pew Research and the CDC, this would affect approximately 245,000 to 260,000 births annually, about 7 to 9% of all U.S. births. The executive order applies only prospectively. It doesn't affect anyone born before February 2025 or children with at least one citizen parent. Multiple lawsuits were filed immediately. Lower courts blocked the order, and the case moved rapidly to the Supreme Court. And on April 1, 2026, the court heard 2 hours and 9 minutes of oral arguments. President Trump attended in person. Solicitor General D. John Sauer argued for the government, while Cecilia Wang of the ACLU represented the challengers. At stake, the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, 125 years of precedent, and the status of hundreds of thousands of children. The entire case hinges on 7 words in the Constitution. Let's look at what the Constitution actually says. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, declares, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside." The entire legal dispute centers on this phrase, "subject to the jurisdiction thereof." What does that mean? The 14th Amendment's primary purpose was to ensure that freed slaves and their children were American citizens, overturning the Dred Scott decision. During the 1866 debates, Senator Jacob Howard explained that it would exclude only narrow categories. First, children of foreign diplomats, who have diplomatic immunity and aren't subject to U.S. laws. Second, children of invading enemy armies during wartime occupation. Third, at that time, most Native Americans living in tribal nations who owed allegiance to their tribes. The question today is whether the phrase excludes other categories, specifically children of parents who are in the U.S. unlawfully or on temporary visas. In 1898, the Supreme Court decided United States versus Wong Kim Ark. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrant parents who were lawful residents but not U.S. citizens. After visiting China, he was denied re-entry. The government argued he wasn't a citizen because his parents owed allegiance to China. The Supreme Court ruled 6-2. He was a citizen. Justice Horace Gray held that the amendment affirms the principle of jus soli, citizenship by birth, on the soil. The court said, subject to the jurisdiction excludes only those 3 narrow historical categories. They don't expand based on immigration status. For 128 years, Wong Kim Ark has been the controlling precedent. Every lower court has ruled that it covers virtually all children born on U.S. soil. During the April 1st oral arguments, Solicitor General Sauer argued that Wong Kim Ark's parents were lawfully domiciled, unlike those in the current case. The ACLU countered, everyone on U.S. soil except diplomats is subject to U.S. laws. They can be arrested, prosecuted, and taxed. That's what jurisdiction means. Legal analyses are describing the oral arguments as a blowout in favor of the challengers. Justices expressed skepticism about expanding exceptions. Chief Justice Roberts noted, "It's the same Constitution, meaning the text hasn't changed since 1868. Legal analysts predict a 6-3 or possibly 7-2 ruling against the executive order. A decision is expected by late June 2026. Now let's look at this through a different lens. This case represents a collision between two pillars of the 7 pillars of freedom framework. First, Pillar 1, independence and sovereignty. A sovereign nation has the right to determine who is part of its political community. The United States is actually unusual. Only about 30 to 35 countries in the world offer unrestricted birthright citizenship, mostly in the Americas. Almost no European countries have unrestricted birthright citizenship. Neither does Asia or most of Africa. They use jus sanguinis, right of blood. So the question is, should the United States continue a policy that most of the developed world has moved away from to deter migration? Those who support restrictions argue, first, nations must control their borders. Citizenship shouldn't be acquired by circumventing immigration law. Second, birth tourism and illegal entry shouldn't confer citizenship or immigration advantages through children. From a Pillar I perspective, the argument is straightforward. If you can't control who becomes a citizen, you don't fully control your nation. But there's another pillar in play, because this case also involves Pillar 2, fundamental rights. The American tradition says rights are natural. They are recognized by the state, not granted by it. But citizenship is a unique political status. The 14th Amendment was created to prevent the creation of a permanent underclass with no political rights and no path to full membership. If restricted, children born and raised here, who speak English and attend American schools, would not be citizens. Families would be split. We're talking about 250,000 children per year who could become a stateless population with unclear legal status. From a Pillar 2 perspective, the argument is that rights cannot be conditional on the circumstances of your parents. Birth on our soil makes you one of us. So here's the collision. Pillar I says a nation must control membership. Pillar 2 says you cannot create a stateless underclass born here. You need both pillars. Without sovereignty, you don't have a nation. Without rights, you don't have freedom. How do you balance them? This is where the 7 pillars framework becomes essential. It's not left versus right. It's a structural tension that must be balanced for freedom to endure. Justice Sonia Sotomayor noted the gravity. You're asking us to overrule 125 years of precedent. That's not a small ask. The likely ruling will preserve Pillar 2 while acknowledging that Pillar 1 concerns can be addressed through immigration reform and border security, not by rewriting the 14th Amendment. The Birthright Citizenship case illustrates why you need a framework. This isn't just about one case. It's a recurrent structural tension in our order. Consider free speech versus national security or property rights versus the environment. These tensions are structural. You need a systematic way to think about them. That's why I created the 7 Pillars of Freedom framework. It breaks down freedom into 7 interdependent conditions, from sovereignty to innovation. The framework includes a diagnostic checklist to help you evaluate any constitutional question or policy debate. Structural thinking, not emotional reactions. I've made the complete 7 Pillars framework guide available for free download at 7pillars.com. No email required, completely free. Inside, you'll find the full explanation, the diagnostic checklist, real-world applications, and a scorecard for your own organization. Next month, it might be a First Amendment case, or a separation of powers dispute, or a question about economic sovereignty versus free trade. Because freedom requires all 7 pillars to stand. 7pillars.com. Download the framework now. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.